So I left a couple suggestions for what might be doing or might be doable tonight. I think some of you saw that, but if anybody else has something better, like I'm happy for whatever. So I have no preference.
Where'd you put those?
I will put a link into Roll20 chat for you.
You put them up on the chat thing probably, and I had such a day today. Over on the
The URL is in Roll20 chat for you.
yeah. Oh, it's under general script. I definitely didn't see your response. Yeah, I see, and I said that's weird. Bill didn't respond, and I realized I just didn't see you respond because I saw that's weird. I saw Mike's and I saw James's, but I didn't see yours.
Oh yeah, Bill, I liked how I posted a meme and you liked it less than a minute later.
Oh, that's because I have no life.
I knew that from the Menagerie game.
I feel like Bill is always watching the board because I get that same stuff, and I highly appreciate it, Bill.
Okay. Some kind of in-game downtime.
It's more that I just keep the tabs open for different things. So
Yes.
I just appreciate it because it makes me feel like I'm not just shouting into the void sometimes.
Yes.
no, it's okay. You're shouting in my face. It's
Right.
Well, thanks there, Bill. That makes me feel a whole lot better about myself.
Ah!
I'm actually very, very grateful for all the people that contribute to the forums, and I'm glad to see that James is more active there too, for example. So just yeah, it's all good. I'm enjoying it.
I am, first of all, very, very grateful that the board exists. I'm more grateful that I haven't managed to get it banned at work. One of the reasons that I approach it somewhat reservedly during the day is because I don't want to generate enough traffic that it garners any attention. So like I don't ever just leave it up as like a tab because I feel like very shortly thereafter it would get blocked. And even now, like portions of it do. Like if I go to the forum and click on a post, it works. But if I get a notification somehow, or if I go directly to a post from off site somehow, like I copy paste it and try to go straight in, it blocks it. So there's really weird parsing going on there.
I'm assuming that there are URL patterns that they look for and have blocked those, but
Sure.
yeah,
And
but that's also one of the reasons that I set up the interact by email functionality, so that if you needed to, you
yes.
could still reply to that.
Well, and the problem is I can't get my personal email at work either. So long sigh. I am work is very engaging and rewarding and blah blah blah, but sweet Jiminy, I've never been so busy in my life at a job. It's something else, and unfortunately, when they have 20,000 people, they don't make a lot of. All their policies are picked with the lowest common denominator in mind in terms of how they want to control stuff, so it's pretty tight. Since the lowest common denominator is like a tech in the field who's going to wander a field if given half an opportunity to do so. So anyway, that's neither here nor there. But I do appreciate it, even if I'm not on as much as I was able to get onto Roll20 in the past.
No, just do whatever you can, and however much that is fine.
Yeah, I did not see this post though. I tell you what. So, and I will say, Mike, little side note, just the City of Mist thing. My homegrown gamers were clamoring to resurrect a game that I've run off and on for them in the past, which is sort of dragons, like the Riders of Berk, Dragons of Berk kind of thing that we do. And it's been long enough that I don't really remember the little hack together homebrew system that I had put together that was sort of a weird kind of Rhesus plus Blades in the Dark success counting thing that I had put together. That it worked, but I couldn't remember it. So, and I tell you, I gave more than half a thought to putting the cards together and going, the dragon could just be one of the cards from City of Mist, and then you'd have another, and then you just pick which ones, and then I realized I'd have to basically teach myself all of that stuff in an hour, and I didn't want to do that, so that's not what happened. But
It is kind of a simple game.
I'm not saying it isn't a simple game, but it was more than I wanted to try to put together, considering I had to invent all of the cards.
No, that's fair.
That in a short period of time. So it ended up being Rhesus, which as a general rule works. Certainly for the level of complexity that my kids are worried about. There's actually some wonderful stuff you can do with that game. For all that it occasionally drives me a little bonkers. Like Lucky Shots is great for people being able to go, I want one more dice, and I like the way they do companions and stuff. It actually works really, really well for games like Dragons and stuff like that. When you got like a cool pet who really helps all the time, it's pretty neat. Anyway, neither here nor there. I love all of the stuff that you came up with, Bill. Both with regards to the game or doing like the Genesis thing. So I love the idea that downtime can give us some answers and scenes to these things. I think it's a great sort of. It's definitely a system, but it's more of a improvisational invention kind of thing. So I'm down with that, and I'm down with the Genesis thing, although that might make James less interested, since that would involve a thing that he's probably not going to participate in, or he can.
Yeah, we should stay on this game. I just
Yeah.
wasn't sure if he was
Who
going to be
all was
around or
going to
not.
make it? So, Mike, remind me, you're out next week, but I think you're the only one who's out next week.
Correct.
Okay. Okay.
Because I'm driving to Vegas.
Driving back from Vegas or something. You're doing stuff.
No. Saturday I'll be in Vegas because I'm driving out there Friday.
Gotcha.
Monday I'll be driving back, and so most likely will not be at the next session.
Cool. All right, we'll figure that out when we come to it. All right. So, with a lot of meandering out of the way, do I want to get any other meandering out of the way? I will very, 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 very briefly say that we got the chance to play the Mask game on Sunday after not being able to play for a couple of weeks. And we've had this whole drug distribution thing where Vanquish is like seeding this debilitating drug into the city and possibly the planet. And the players have been trying to figure out what to do about that. Somewhat hampered by the fact that the guy who basically stands in for Superman / Captain America in their version of Halcyon City is apparently dressing up in, covert operation clothes and sneaking into their base to smash all the computers for reasons that they don't know. But they finally, just out of sheer frustration, were like, you know what? We're not going to research. We're not going to do anything. The first guy that we ever talked to said that there was a guy that they were flown here in a ship and that he was running the whole operations. We're going to find the ship and we're going to blow it up. So they got to fly to space, hunt for the thing in orbit, find the ship, and blow it up. And then Kaylee's little hand-to-hand combatant got to go toe-to-toe with Kalka the Bloodhewn from the villains deck, who was exactly the kind of person that she really wanted to fight. So they got to beat the shit out of the stuff and then blow up a spaceship. And nothing went too wrong. Too much.
I'm glad that worked out for them.
I
because
mean,
in my experience, space is never the answer.
Yeah, it was pretty good. And I mean, it hit every single cylinder for Kaylee, because she got to get the fight. She ended up taking a powerful blow, got smacked with a 10, and she got to immediately, like, she basically got Hulk versus Loki all over the bridge of the ship, and then purposely took the taken out response, which she then countered with her move of I can do this all day. So they did all this stuff, and they go to turn away from the person that she was trying to defend in the first place, and she got back up and was like, "Is that it?" I was like, "No, no, I ain't done with you yet," and just like Bruce Lee fingered, hand gestured her back over to her. So there's a whole lot of cool coming off of that scene. It was pretty good. Led to a lot of inspirational fan art on her part, all that kind of stuff. So anyway, that was my last little thing. I figured you guys would appreciate it because masks. Now let's actually get to our game. We should do that. We're doing downtime, which is to say we are at the, I'm going to say village for lack of a better word. I feel as though that's a little bit too permanent sounding, but camp is too transitory. And to an extent,
Settlement?
well, see, here's the thing. They are nomadic by nature. They're always moving because they're usually following islands. Maybe not always the same island, but they have I think you called it a migratory pattern, somewhat. And as a result, they don't stay moving. And then you drop their island. Now they don't stay close to it, but they stay near it. They're sort of trailing it. And then the island drops out of the sky, and they don't move. So what should have been a relatively transitory camp, and would have been entirely appropriate to call it a village-sized camp, becomes something more than that, and isn't exactly designed for that. So one of the things I will note that you guys are seeing, and this is less true of the cave dwellings that they have, that because this is a place they've been through often enough that they've got these more permanent structures in place here for whatever reason, and there is a reason for it, but for whatever reason they've got a few more permanent, caves, cliff stuff, things like that. But the structures that we've seen that are down like in the trees and stuff like that are things that are really meant to be used for like a week, and then you're gone. And they're being used for a lot longer than that, and you're seeing a lot more fraying around the edges, not well, both literally and figuratively, because it's the kind of it's kind of camping that starts to show a lot of impact on its surroundings if it takes place for too long. They move enough, it doesn't really have any kind of harmful impact. But when it has to go into like the long term like this, it starts to feel a lot more bedraggled, I guess maybe might be the word. So there's a little bit more of that. It's somewhat emotionally reflected in the people of the air as well, because they're not. Well, they've had a lot of emotional blows, right? I mean, the island dropped, and that's just kind of a shocker anyway, and that's had a big impact on their leaders and their future leaders. Impact in that one of them's dead. So they're shook in a lot of ways, and then on top of that, their typical daily flow is disrupted. They're not moving on. They're not traveling. Where would they go exactly? And those that are old enough to process this are just kind of, they know why it's bothering them, but that doesn't necessarily help. And you talk about the younger kids and stuff. You get like younger members of this particular tribe that are acting out and disruptive and just generally more manic and more kind of on a knife's edge, emotionally speaking, and in a lot of cases because they're young for reasons that they probably don't even really realize. And just because the adults maybe realize it doesn't mean they're dealing with it any better. So there's an emotional edge to what's going on. It's actually seems to be helping, and I would definitely confirm this if we're, if Anne were here. It seems to be helping having the people from Redstone or Red Valley here because it gives them something to do and people to help, so they don't have to be so far in their own little bunker. And
And
that's
I would like to make a suggestion for a specific manifestation of this unrest. Um,
oh, I like
the
that.
question of now that the island is down, do we get to
Do we get to what? Say it again.
go visit it?
Oh,
Like if some of the younger people are like, yeah, this is this sacred island where the royalty is crowned effectively or birthed. That's great, but now that it's down, it's broken. Who cares? We get to go poke around at it, right?
I think it's one of those things. There's a lot of tradition, a lot of tradition is how things are carried forward, but there's a lot of like the world is turned upside down. Some people want closure. The knee-jerk reaction is to say no, of course not, but then you start to think about it over time. So there's a lot of murmuring about it. Maybe, probably because it is a tribe and it's not like the king and queen are up in a castle away from everybody. They don't. They're a little bit more circumspect about the mutterings because they're not just the chief and the shaman who are removed from us. They're also family members that we know who lost a son. So they're people aren't exactly saying anything, but there's definitely those murmurs of that. But certainly something you guys would catch a lot faster because there's whenever conversation goes on for very long, the island comes up and the crash to the ground comes up and people want to go see. Some do. Lacking anything else, and it's not anybody who says no. It's like, okay, what should we do? And they don't have answers. So as far as choices go, it's one of the few ones that comes out that's got a clear signal. I love that idea. That's great. Does anybody have any questions about like any other sort of setting the scene type of stuff that's going on right now? Like what's going on with these guys? When like what's definitely going on with these guys? I'm kind of curious, and maybe I'll save that for the downtime thing, but I'm kind of curious how people are generally reacting to you. How do you see that happening? Is it more fear? Is it more resentment and anger? Is it just blind superstition without really any thought behind it? Do you get a lot of gestures against the evil eye as you're walking around, or?
To me?
Yeah, to you specifically.
Sorry, like some of your words were dropping out.
Sorry. I think there's some other things happening on my network, but I think most of the data stuff is done. So hopefully that's not going to slow things down. Anyway,
Um,
so how do you see the village that that Win is walking through? Is it hostile, fearful, superstitious, disgusted,
I think there's, definitely a mix there.
hungry?
I'm actually staying more in my, uh, away from the people, as much as I can.
Yeah, they probably set you guys up in one of the caves as you are not flying folk of any kind. So they've maybe moved. This is true for all the people from Red Valley, I think. On one hand, you're putting some people out that were in the caves. On the other hand, they're happy to be moving, even if it's only like a couple of dozen yards, and setting up a new nest, camp, tent, nest. We'll say nest. Just because it feels a little bit closer to what they're used to. So you're kind of staying away from people as much as possible.
Yeah. Um, for both our sakes.
Gotcha. Virens has done a few things, interacted more. Certainly, Virens has been interacting, I think, a lot with the people, especially our erstwhile, heir, Sakura. What about so Wynn's kind of staying out of things, and we'll get back to what Wynn might be doing with that time. Virens has been interacting more, at least with some parts of the study. Rome, what have you been doing? Or who have you been spending time with?
Rowan has probably been like, I'd say, kind of off in his own little head, just like, oh, that crazy Rowan, he's off doing horoscopes again, trying to before everybody heads off to Chains Crossing. So it is probably like some just weird stuff for these folks to be watching,
like sort of star charting and that sort of thing.
Uh-huh.
They
people watch him like grab like a big stick and start digging in the dirt as he's watching the night sky.
Some of that is unusual. Some of it not so much. I think these guys probably, due to their sort of traveling nature, I think a lot of their art might be maybe clothing related or that sort of thing, stuff that they would wear, take with them. But some of it is also quite ephemeral. So like sort of sand drawing, like that kind of stuff, or maybe honestly even like painting on walls, trees, weaving. Seems like they would be weaving. But I mean, they live under the night sky. Observing the stars is not wouldn't that in and of itself would not seem strange to them at all. And they have the eyes for it. So, you get the random child who be like, "That's you're missing one. There's 2 more stars up there next to that one. That's part of this constellation." And they poke them in there. You not even really picking out those particular stars, not clearly. That kind of thing. The shamans also, if you're open to it, Sakura's father, the shamans, likely, given an opening, would probably be living in your back pocket. Guardedly speaking, he would be conferring with you because they have a lot of lore about the corruptor. Lore, superstition, whatever. And you seem to be, they're invested in you doing something about that, and you seem to have a lot of sort of systemic you divining going on with regards to that, so they'd be curious about that. I wonder though if they aren't a little bit more, if we're talking about shaman, the star thing and stuff. I think they maybe have sort of a spirit thing going on, but I don't think it's that. I don't think it's the animal spirit thing the way the orcs do. I think there may be more of an ancestral thing going on. How does that strike people? I'm throwing that out there as a what if. Any thoughts on that? Like sort of an ancestral spirit kind of a thing? I don't know how. The orcs are so matter of fact about their spirit magic. And I'm not sure that's how
I think the analogy to Wakanda that was made earlier is a good guideline here. I think it would be interesting if, for example, the royal family had like this line of like the previous avatars or something along those lines, where they could go consult with this wisdom.
Yeah.
Whether like the rank and file common folk are routinely talking to their ancestors or not, they might simply venerate them, knowing that they're out there somewhere. But I think that general concept of ancestral spirits being a thing in their lives is great.
Yeah, they don't necessarily have the same method. I mean, the idea, like with the Wakandans, that they have that sort of method.
And it might be
They do
and it
this
might be an
thing.
artifact of how the royal family gets birthed too. That infusion of magic that lets them fly.
Tied into
Also,
the lilies. Yeah,
yeah.
I like that a lot. I like that a lot. Have you ever? And I don't imagine you will, because I don't know that that particular branch of the genre probably appeals or not. But you ever read like the Joe Abercrombie, like the Blade itself series? Sort of a dark fantasy. I don't even know how to explain it. It's sort of a low fantasy kind of uh, uh, low fantasy Lord of the Rings. Um, but there's a guy in there, like a sort of a northern barbarian, who very, very matter of factly speaks to spirits. It's just a thing he can do, and it's not uncommon amongst his people, and everybody else thinks it's super weird, and he can just do it. Not at will, like there's a pretty, but it reminds me very much of Viren's a little bit in the way that's like, if you have these particular types of aromatic woods to burn on the campfire, and you make this certain kind of stew over it, the spirits will come and pretend to eat the stew, and you can ask them questions. And it's just very like, this is how it's done, and it works every time, because of course it works every time. You know, it's spirits, it's not superstition. It just reminds me a lot of Viren's thing. I think the people of the air might be a little bit more rarefied than that. Somebody sounded like they were miking up to say something.
Yeah, I was just going to say that I think that makes sense. And I think the people might attach more significance to it than the orcs would. But what that looks like, I think, is kind of where we're going with this question for Rowan of what does hanging out with a shaman look like in terms of how you guys interact, what you might talk about, what different views you have on what the ley lines mean, what it means to have sacred sites and all that kind of stuff. Like, do the Harbingers even have a concept of sacred sites, or is it just this area of land is a big battery for us, for example?
Yes, that is very accurate. Because the Harbingers aren't going to be like, oh yeah, this is a very spiritual place for us. No, this is a highly profitable area in order to gather resources. Mostly ethereal ones.
Magical capitalists.
Yeah.
Very, very. Not exactly sciency, but it kind of strikes me as that. Like, it's a lot less spiritual and a lot more methodical. I ask questions.
Yeah.
Okay. When you spend downtime in a city or village, each player tells us one thing the character did there. Starting with whoever you like. I don't think whoever is really spelled out, so who do we want to hear from with like what you were doing? One thing that you did there.
Who'd like to go first?
Somebody spin us up. I like how this is written.
I mean, I had a whole thing which I wrote on the forums, which is the Sacred Hunt, so I kind of did that.
You did. I think the door is open for you to do another thing, if you want, or you can let that stand as your thing. James, did you see that the story they did kind of about the hunt?
I saw it, but I hadn't gotten a chance to read it.
It was pretty neat.
It was quite good.
Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, the elk picture actually kind of works a little bit because that thing had some. I mean, the name you'd given it was like, oh, that doesn't sound very dangerous, and it's like, geez, if you look at this thing wrong, you get cut. Is some sharp horns on that thing.
Do we actually just want to take like 5 or 10 minutes to take a break and give James or anyone else a chance to read it or reread it?
Sure, can do that. I am.
James, are you okay with that?
Sure.
I'll let that stand as Bill's. And I'll get it up here.
I will drop a link into Roll20 chat for you.
I appreciate it. Roll 20. Where are we at here? Blink and blink. I mean, it's not especially long, and it's quite good. See, that's weird. My reply didn't. Okay. Bill, I swear to God, I replied to this. I don't know why it didn't post. Maybe it was my
I
Doesn't
think
work
you
as
did
you.
too.
That is weird, right? It did.
You might have replied in a different thread, maybe. I don't know.
The upshot of it was Sakura would
Like you
Sakura.
replied in Discord. I saw that.
Oh, maybe it was in Discord. You're right. Yeah, maybe it was in Discord. Yeah, I'm 100. Anyway, Sakura was. I'm 100% behind this. Sakura being involved. She is definitely wants to learn more about that culture. Is personally interested. If they don't necessarily intersect with the Toscan Empire directly, they certainly run into the scouts, and they've obviously had enough interaction at some point. There's probably a story there for her to have picked up quite a bit of the culture. If not, you know, not like I lived in Tokyo for a year, but certainly at some point was able to get a lot of questions that she had answered about the culture. So seems to know quite a bit and was definitely down for that. So I thought it was just good.
Okay. Well, let's take a break, come back, and then I can actually add to that for my downtime activity.
Perfect.
And I will do so.
And that'll give us 5 minutes to think about. I'm going to personally, the Overlord is going to take the Overlord's downtime to add some add a scene that points at the sort of second goal, because I'm supposed to be running 2 simultaneously. So we're gonna. I'll be kind of. I've thought about it, but I want to get a little bit extra things. So we'll take 5 here and we'll come back.
Okay.
Cool.
Okay.
I am back.
Welcome back.
I've also been back.
Meanwhile, Boyce is on vacation.
I been putting up command strips to hang up a thing in my dorm room, and I got it all the way done and realized I had put the hooks facing the wrong way.
Oof.
So I gotta do it all again.
So the original Murphy's Law scenario hit you.
Yeah, it really did. But I'd rather that go wrong than the hooks not hold the weight of the painting and it comes crashing down.
That's totally fair.
So I'll take this Murphy's Law.
So I guess that's like Murphy's meta law. It's like there's different levels of how things can go wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, I'm back.
All right, we're also back.
Cool, cool. All right. All right. So Bill Sing's out here, and I guess the real downtime question is really like, what else? What happened then, or what is the other thing that happened that Variance was involved in?
So I think that the interaction with Sekira after the Sacred Hunt finishes is that she will talk more about the orcs that she knew, and that the patrol that Variance's half brother Akutus had been part of has been here before. And one of the orcs in that group strayed from the pack to investigate something, probably got gored by some creature like a hornbuck or some similar creature around here, and the people of the air took him in for a while. And during that time, I want to say that they got to know each other to the extent that that they could. The orc didn't have a lot of questions, but these people were very curious about this creature who had kind of just shown up on their doorstep bleeding, and just what he was doing there. This may have been their first actual experience with a live orc. Like they may have heard stories about Tosk and its inhabitants, but this may have been the first time that they personally met an orc, and so I'm sure they had a lot of questions.
Or at least to interact with them in anything other than like, cautious trade and kind of avoiding one another and that kind of stuff. So yeah, like that. And nailing this down, you said this person that they interacted with would have been part of that same earlier, but part of that same patrol or the group that you were part of, or just randomly some other thing that happened when she was a kid.
Somebody from that, not during that the time that patrol was out and about and got crushed, but like maybe a year earlier or 2 years or some period of time prior to that.
And would she have known? Like, was it known to the tribe that same group of orcs was back in the area? Like, that she might have run into them or expected to?
I'm going to say that they kind of knew just by being aware of their surroundings and keeping an eye out for who's in their territory. They probably knew, but there may have been a discussion about, hey, we should go talk to the orcs. No, we really shouldn't because they're violent savages. No, they're not, because there was this person who we rescued and respect to health, and they were good people. Well, we should still mind our own business, and that
kind of going back and forth there.
Yeah, I think it ended on we're not going to go contact them. So I think Sekira's interest now is, hey, I get to talk to an orc again and actually see what's up.
Interesting. I like it. And I had kind of been thinking about the same sort of, had some similar ideas in the back of my mind that it was maybe somebody had been nursed back to health or something like that. Um, how I think Sakura's interest in this is pretty straightforward and at least clear. Um, her interaction with you has been pretty good, and her family chief hasn't been obviously coming down enough, like hasn't been pushing back on this too hard because she did go on the hunt with you, that kind of thing. But how do you think the what's the mood from the chief and the shaman, sort of the leaders of the tribe with regards to you specifically? Like what's the mood there? What's the vibe you're getting off of them? Is it, I mean, I'll just leave it there. Like, what is that vibe, and where do you think it's coming from, good or bad?
Well, Varens would make a good husband. No, I'm joking. I think their real concern is if they're less nomadic than before. I feel like they are afraid that Tosk is going to decide that it needs to send some orc spears out here to kind of take control of their tribe and colonize them. I think they're afraid of losing their independence in their ways. They don't want to become colonialized.
Sure, sure. And they travel, which makes it hard, but they've always
But now that's gone away. Yeah.
right. They're vulnerable in that way. It's like a bird with a broken wing kind of thing. At least a damaged wing. They're they're not any less mobile, but it feels like it because their guidepost is gone.
Yeah.
People of the air. They seem to be the phrase that Sakura, and it's not exactly how her name would be probably pronounced the way they say it, but it's close. But the word that she uses when she refers to her own people, they don't say we are the people of the air. Their word in their language is Makulteksat. It's a lot of really clicks, a lot of that really hard, kind of a bird sound almost, but a lot of you can almost, how Egyptian's written without vowels, and the vowels sort of have to be inferred based on logic that you can kind of deduce and that kind of thing. At least that's my understanding of it. At least ancient Egyptian. You could almost feel like you could take the vowels out and slide in different ones, and the consonants are sort of the point. But that's their sort of word for themselves. Makulteksat. It means what you would always expect it to mean, or you imagine it does. In context, it seems to be, something like the people or the family, something like that. And you're guessing the family or our family or something like that because when she uses the same Texat when she refers to collectively her mother and father. When she's talking about them as her mother and father, and not as the shaman and the queen and the chief. So little bits and pieces, bits and bobs that you picked up there. Okay. So caution. Do you think that Sakura told them? And I've been fascinated by the possible answer here. Did she tell them what you told them about what the spirit's supposed to do and what should happen as a result? Or did she decide not to tell them because she thinks that they would overreact to the idea that you sent word and more orcs should show up?
Yeah, this is the reason. This is kind of the reason I wanted to do this. I think they're going to be very unhappy.
They and I don't
Like if
disagree. I'm
I
wondering
think
what she
I think
thinks.
she's going. I think she's going to tell them. I think they're going to be very unhappy. I think there's going to be like I feel like she can't not tell them. You know.
Right. Does she tell them right away, or does she
Yes.
sit on it for? Okay. All right.
Like the time to think about it is when they're walking back from the hunt. You know.
She was swept up in the moment, but as she's walking back, she's thinking about what that means and what it's going to mean to the. And then by the time you
Yes.
get back to the camp, she's like, "I need to go and talk to my parents."
Yeah, suddenly shit got very real. Like before that, it was all hypothetical. But after the drumming and after that spirit, went and did his thing, she's like, "Oh, this actually happened now.
And
I have to go deal with that."
you're totally matter of fact, like, and then some of my people will come, and her first reaction is, "That's amazing," and her second reaction is, "That's like the worst possible thing you could tell me right now."
So I'll take a powerful blow. It's fine.
Okay, cool. James, Mike, either one of you want to leap into the breach as events develop? Other events develop? And talk about what you were doing, what you did on your summer vacation, on your summer downtime? It's very quiet.
I can go.
All right.
Uh,
Each player tells us one thing their character did. The Overlord may ask questions. Oh, I will.
wait, question, because I don't
Yeah,
have
hit
the
me.
rules in front of me.
Yep.
So is this?
There need more guidelines than actual rules.
But is it just like, tell me cool kind of story element, or is it tell me thing that I don't know will specifically move forward one part of the plot? Which I mean, any story element should. But do you understand what I'm saying?
The answer is kind of yes, and
All
as
right.
as you like. So if it's I'm delving back into memories that have tended to fade with time and I've sort of forgotten, and using these creatures in my long past interactions with them to springboard myself back to a memory that's going to give me a clue, and that clue is X, awesome. And if it's more like, something much less, just kind of a color thing,
Yeah.
that's
Okay.
fine. That's fine too. I'm good with either, and you should not feel as though it needs to be one or the other.
Cool. So
Does that track for
I'm
everybody else? Because I
yeah.
shouldn't be the only one answering.
I feel that if you have plot that you want to advance, this is a fine time to do it.
Yes.
If you just want to do side stuff, I think that's totally fine too. Like whatever you think is fun and would add to the game in whatever capacity, I'm totally okay with that.
Okay.
What he said.
So what I do is, and I don't remember their names. I kind of go seek out maybe the shaman sage,
Okay.
whichever.
Yeah, the shaman would be Sakura's father.
Yeah. And I uh ask him, to talk to me about their culture and their history, because for a few reasons. One, even though my people were, the mighty O'Here, these people still outlived us, even though we saw them as inferior.
Hmm.
So it's good to learn from that. And also, though the goal got polluted over these centuries, the O'Here were a race about, finding knowledge and protecting it. And this is a chance for more knowledge and to continue that tradition.
Interesting. Okay. Do you have answers to this that you want to deliver, or are you asking me to have him throw some stuff out there?
I mean, I don't have
I
anything in
yeah,
particular. I figure
I can throw some
uh,
stuff. I've absolutely got stuff I can do, but you're also you have the right of first refusal when it comes to sort of spotting lore about these guys, I think.
no, I'm good with whatever. I think it'd be. I get the feeling that he would probably do some kind of history on the O'Here interactions, just as a kind of like, look what your people did passive aggressiveness. But
hmm. There is something,
if you
yeah,
have
I
info
can.
you want to give,
I
Yeah,
think. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, just because this will lead into my thing, is it okay if Rowan's there?
Absolutely. 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 Um, Probably either because you were already there, or you walk in, or well, I'll ask: is it you were already the like he found the shaman, and the shaman was where you were, so it just kind of became this thing, or did Rowan sort of arrive while he's locuting?
I don't know. James, I imagine, lacking getting the shaman alone, would Wynn feel more comfortable talking to him while, while it's just the shaman and Rowan talking?
If you had to
um,
pick.
I think probably so. And also then the shaman would be more likely to talk than rather just talking to an O'Here.
Yeah, I think he'd be likely to. He might be inclined to dismiss Wynn's opening gambit, so to speak, except for the fact that if he's in there with Rowan, and Rowan's this O'Here's companion, and he wants to interact with Rowan, he's not going to just be. He's going to be less, not at all, but he'll be less likely, we'll say, to uh, just dismiss the thing out of hand. So he'll give it a shot, and you probably see that, like he really wants to say, you know, sawed off, you bag of birdseed, um, and dust, but he settles on something still formal-ish, but he's not completely shutting you down. The Tuxat survived the O'Here, your people, in many senses of the word, survived their aggression and survived them past their fall. We were, not for those lacking the desire to eradicate this, but we are like a puddle that one stomps in. The droplets may spatter, but they eventually flow back together, and they can survive in that way. But we are, as a people, longer lived, at least in this place, in this world, than the O'Here on either end. Our stories tell us, our histories tell us that we were here amongst the, and he uses a word and then stops and thinks about it for a second, the Sky Islands, long before your people came. And then they came, and our lives changed, and then they were gone, and our lives changed again. So, in the scope of the Taksat, the people of the air, as you say, you are a dark place a very broad, very long, dark place in our history that lies in the center. But we came before, and we are here, and we are here after. We've been, and yours was not the first people who hunted us or despised us or tried to cage us when we would be free. So, in that regard, you are no better or worse than many others we have encountered, and very likely no worse than those that we will encounter again who would seek to put us in a village or a cage. The word that he uses, the words sound very similar when he kind of says his own words for them. Village and cage sound, they're not the same word, but they're etymologically speaking, they're similar to each other. They've got the same root. For them, moving is part of, a free people. And he got so those that came before that the O'Hare. Oh, what's the word I'm looking for? I want to say like aped or copied, but kind of, or idolized, but that's none of those are quite the right word.
Admired or emulated.
Yeah, emulated, but the people that came before the O'Hare that they wished to be like, and in some ways matched. Perhaps in other ways they might have judged themselves to have surpassed them. Our stories tell that they felt the same way about the Taksat, the Corruptor, and the Corruptor's people were the worst, and that flowed down into the O'Hare through channels and streams below the ground that they did not see. And they felt that same desire. Perhaps it is true of all empire, true of all kingdoms, or it is true of all that were influenced by the Corruptor and the Corruptor's people, that they feel this way about us. But if that is true, then every people in the world but the Taksat will feel that way about the Taksat, because they have all been influenced by the Corruptor long ago. We have, and he rattles off, their words or whatever, but essentially, the Catlings, the Tusken, the Harbingers, the O'Hare, the Fae, elves, whatever. They were all touched by the Corruptor. And if it is the Corruptor if the Corruptor's influence that causes them to feel that way about the Tuskat, then they will all, then if that is the source, then we must expect all people to react to us in that way. So he goes on a bit, but kind of lapses. He realizes he's kind of saying some pretty rough things with regards to like the Harbinger that he's talking to. So Taksat, yeah. I came out here to have a good time. I'm feeling so attacked right now.
I'm feeling like this guy would be played by is very similar to Tave from Fiddler on the Roof. Like I'm getting that mood.
Fiddler on the Roof. Maybe. You
Like
know,
we're gonna keep defiantly being ourselves. I don't care what you say.
a little bit. Uh, you know, if this were an animated series from 10 years ago, he'd be voiced by Leonard Nimoy. You know, creaky older Leonard Nimoy. Uh, what am I thinking of? Oh, the Atlantean King from the Atlantis movie that Michael J. Fox was in, the animated one. You know which one I'm talking about? Atlantis something Lost City of Atlantis.
The Lost Empire, yeah.
Lost Empire, something like that. But yeah, Leonard Nimoy was in there as like the blind king or something like that.
I thought you were gonna say Aquaman for a second. I was like, there was a king in there. It was played by Dolph frickin' Lundgren, and he was amazing.
I do not remember that, but no, that's not who I was thinking of.
And going
Anyway,
back to what we mentioned earlier, he also played He-Man. So
Dolph Lundgren played He-Man?
yeah,
I did not know that. I don't know that I wanted to know that. That
You've never seen that movie where, what is it, at the very end, the car is the most important thing some people have ever seen? Or most amazing thing?
yeah.
I
Franklin, it's the movie,
you cut out.
and Frank Langella said that Skeletor was one of his favorite roles ever.
Really? Huh.
So now you can't not know that.
I mean, I'm kind of curious now. Now, I was really there was a I was talking about this with somebody at work today. I was very opinionated about certain movies that I just decided were not for me, that were genre stuff that I was not, despite the fact that I was out in the middle of freaking nowhere when I was growing up and even through college and stuff. And I, by all rights, should have just hungrily consumed any genre stuff that I could get my hands on, and kind of did when it came to books. I was gonna say choosier, but it may have been snootier about movies. So stuff that I've never, a lot of stuff there that I've never seen.
That,
I got,
that's fair.
if I got a whiff of B movie, I just ran the other direction. And with weird exceptions like Lady Hawk, um, and stuff like that. But like it came out like a month ago that I've never seen Neverending Story, like ever, and my wife's decided this is a travesty that must be corrected. Um, Things like that. Uh, Quite a few sort of fantasy movies from back then. Dark Crystal, I don't think until I watched it with my kids about a month ago, I'd ever actually watched all the way through. I have a lot of difficulty with that movie, still today. Anyway,
So I promise this had a point though. Um, the
I
question I
can't make
wanted
the
to
same
ask as a
promise we
player
made.
for James goes back to a little before He-Man, but this idea of we are ourselves. The empires come and go, and especially seeping into these horses. I want to ask: does Win have any stories that they want to share, or at least something that Win is thinking about, where this whole idea of the corruptor poisoned your civilization might um, might be something that they realize maybe this did happen, or is there something that you might push back against and be like, no, the Okier were better than that. I'm interested in that kind of story.
Um,
Putting you on the spot.
That's what we're here for.
mm, um,
Like if there's something different you want to talk about, I'd love to hear it. But that's the question that came up to me when I was hearing all this.
I think, um, I think I can, you know, think back to previous civilizations that, uh, so we had known that Ursula was kind of on the move around places, but had been arrogant that, she can never get to Nelrez, which, famous last words. Um, so I think there are, I can, there would be some earlier civilizations like, oh wow, I didn't expect the I don't know, whoever to fall, or um ooh what were they called? Uh the Jalopes, the
Oh,
miners, the dwarves,
the Dwarven
the
clan.
Dwarven Kingdom clan. Um maybe um the violence that caused them to uh retract from Red Valley and drop old connection with the O'Hare was caused because they're actually one of our very few allies. Um,
As opposed to subjugate peoples? Like they were willingly involved in that? Or
yeah, I mean, how?
theirs was an eager partnership.
Yeah,
Something like that. Hmm.
and so it could be that so that if or so that when uh, Ursula came for us,
Ursula was
she
an
wouldn't
agent.
really have to contend with anyone.
True or false?
You're going to say
Ursula
something.
was a ancient evil at the time that she orchestrated the fall of Nolrez.
What, she was already ancient?
It's a true or false question. I don't know the right. I don't know. I mean, my assumption, and feel free to agree, is that she was actually already uh, a, if not a myth, a legend of evil or corruption or something like that at the time of the fall of Nalrez. She wasn't a new thing. She was like
Yeah.
the great
Uh,
adversary, blah blah blah, at that point already still.
It feels like you're asking, like, did Satan corrupt our hearts versus did Genghis Khan burn down our village? Is that kind of what you're
And then
asking?
and then become, yeah, was
I think so.
yeah. I mean,
I can
was
see there being like some parallels between then and now.
yeah, like to put a slightly different spin on because I don't need it to be quite like that, but we were destroyed by the world's greatest wizard versus we were destroyed by Sauron. To put it in that context, because world's greatest wizard is somebody whose origin you can probably trace back to wherever they started, versus they were already and had all quote unquote always been this great monolithic thing, this great creeping evil, you know, on the edges of civilization, blah blah blah, or whatever, or at the heart of civilization, or something like that. Is that kind of where we're going with that? Like she was.
Yeah, I can feel that. Um,
I'm just trying to get a
and
sense of that, how that came about.
no, I think that's cool. And oh shoot, what was it? I had the thought words. Um,
Say a thing, because I have one more question about
yeah,
Nolrez, but you go.
um, and this is totally up to you,
Mm.
because she's your character, but uh, thinking so if she was already kind of the ancient evil, maybe was I don't know known just as the Destroyer, or I don't know, remember her full name.
The Corruptor.
The
Ursula
Great
Tenebrious,
Corruptor.
the Corruptor. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, she might have been the Corruptor at that point.
yeah.
And less
So
the
like,
name.
and so that would be why people, or I'm just thinking namey stuff and her being called differently back before, and so that's why any fragments of myth that may have survived from the previous time aren't being utilized.
If
I
I'm
don't know.
gonna command
That's
Laura,
not articulated
no,
very
I
well.
like that. If I'm gonna command Laura a little bit about this, I think, as far as her as a myth, as a myth and legend goes, I think she's in most stories of, like, say, any stories that are really like meant to be historical stories of the fall of the O'Hare. The motive force behind that before it was stopped is the Corruptor. The association between the Corruptor title and Ursula Tenebrios is that of fairy tales, I think. Like the kind of like campfire stories, and like, and I don't know how accurate this is, but like actual accurate to historical whatever, but there's a sense that when a long-running fairy tale that's gone for generations, I read this thing about not that long ago about entomologically, like the people who study stories and the formation of stories and shared stories throughout cultures and stuff like that can take, there's certain stock, I should have saved that. There's certain stock story elements, you know, prince saves beautiful girl slash princess from sleeping sickness, recovers her with a kiss slash something, gift, um, from,
Like the Arn Thompson Uther Index. Like
yeah,
there's actual numbers applied to fairy tales. Yeah.
right. And if you take those and trace them, there are certain stories, like there's like a cluster of about 300 stories or so that go back like to prehistory, like this like uh Rumpelstiltskin, like the Rumpelstiltskin story is old, like pushing 5 digits of years worth of old, like old, like as far back as we can know anything happened. That story, there's been a story like that. Rumpelstiltskin's a bad example, but there's ones like that. It's kind of cool. And when a story in whatever culture needs a bad guy, they just say Ursula Tenebrios. That's that, if they don't have one handy, and there's frequently they've got ones handy, but they'll throw it in that it was Ursula Tenebrios up to her tricks. Ursula Tenebrios doing this. Ursula Tenebrios jealous at this person's beauty. Ursula Tenebrios jealous of this person's strength. Ursula Tenebrios plotting the downfall of the kingdom. It's always
So she's
her.
the boogeyman.
She's a boogeyman. She's the fill in the blank boogeyman. If you don't need a name, you throw that one in. I'm gonna hand this to Rowan. My thought is that the Corruptor, like there's always been kind of a playful, like, oh, the Corruptor is Ursula Tenebrios, and it's like a punchline, right? Because you always make that name be the boogeyman name.
In indie stories with vampires, Dracula will make an appearance.
Right. So the Corruptor is Ursula Tenebrios, haha, because every boogeyman that we don't have a name for, we just say it's Ursula Tenebrios. Except Rowan's done some research and thinks it may actually have been. Like, that may be, like, and it's hard, that's one of the reasons it's hard to take the whole theory seriously, that, like, they're back. Because you also think that the Corruptor was Ursula Tenebrios, which is kind of like saying, whatever.
I-
You
I'm
take
kinda getting the
you
vibe.
take serious evil concept and say, I seriously think that their real name is silly boogeyman name, whatever that happens to be.
Um, this really sounds like I'm going around saying, no, I don't think you understand. The Baba Yaga is really coming to get us.
Yeah, kind of, a little
You,
bit.
you wear a tinfoil wizard hat just by any chance?
Yeah, a little bit like, yeah, kind of. Um, yeah.
But
Anyway,
before
thought
we go
there.
too far, James, did you have more, or did that pretty much answer, or was that pretty much the answer you wanted to give?
Yeah, no, that was. I'm good.
Now that everybody else talked over you, I'm sorry about that.
No, it's totally good. I am not
You started
running
some very good.
at
You started some very good
full
ideas there.
full steam right now.
No, you let us know about that, and I'm glad that we got what we did out of you, because it did kick off a lot of interesting stuff. I just wanted to see if there was anything else.
One short follow-up
Thanks.
question, and I think the answer may already be out there already, and I'm just not remembering it. Nalrez fell. Was it more like, okay, so first framing, abrupt or a long decay? I think the answer is
It was
abrupt.
abrupt. It was
Okay.
very abrupt.
On a
You know,
scale from
Earth-
nuclear bomb to biological weapon, which end of the scale was it that caused the thing? Like, was it more
caused
towards like bomb or like germ warfare, magical germ warfare, whatever? But
it literally fell.
so the
It
whole
was in kind of a peninsula on the lowlands with a space in the center, and that land chunk clearly fell
geologic
and it's down in
collapse.
the lowlands. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay,
Yeah, I sent a little drawing over, and there's a breaking point.
love it. I love that there's some parallels there to some stuff that we're seeing here, as though Wynn needed convincing, but yeah, the idea of falling down the lowlands, the island dropping, seeing the statues of the O'Hare lose their power and begin to collapse and tumble to the ground and stuff like that. That there's a lot of like really really strong parallels there. Okay, so this conversation's been going on. The way the Tuxat sort of see people, they've always seen themselves as a part. They see themselves. So, it's summarizing some of like the Gestalt view. They see themselves as a people apart. They see themselves as the first people. Not unusual, but they kind of have some fairly good arguments for it. Certainly, their stories seem to go back to pre-O'Hare history. We know we were there when the O'Hare came. We were here for the people that were before the O'Hare. They see themselves as uncorrupted by the corruptor, and thus the enemy of the corruptor. Though not like the one light that stands against them kind of enemy of, but like the tastiest morsel on the plate. So some summary stuff there. A reason I'm framing up that sort of stuff is to hand it to Rowan, and because you mentioned it kind of feeds into what you were doing with your time, with your downtime and stuff. So go. If you're inclined to go.
Well, we'll see if it still feeds in now, because I was like, oh yeah, we're gonna talk about culture stuff.
Hit me.
This kind of took a downward turn.
Did it?
But no, just more of like a passive aggressive on the
Okay.
shaman's part, kind of.
Oh yeah. There's definitely some shots at the Harbingers because the way they see the Corruptor, they see the Harbingers as being. I mean, you've said before that the Harbingers, like their council kind of models the structure of the O'Hare. The way they use power is different. The way they use the power of the world is different and
Mhm.
somewhat singular. And for the Tuxat sort of see that as an echo of other previous older people's traditions, that kind of thing. So for them, it's more of that. But go. What say you?
But
That doesn't. But he
yeah.
doesn't judge you as a person individually. You might be fine.
So I think after like there's like some quiet and like nobody's talking for a while and Rowan's still kind of like going through his stuff and everything.
Mm.
He's just kind of like he kind of has like a talk with Shell. He's like, "Man, this is probably the most I've learned about your people's culture. I've met a few of you, but they weren't really part of the whole cultural thing you guys got going on."
We will take outsiders in when we are traveling. It's not common. There are times of the year when we will not. You might have come upon a tribe that didn't want you to stay or did not make the offer to travel with us because there are times when we are. The word fragile is wrong, but there are times when the egg should not be exposed to too much cold and too much heat. And there are times of the year when we are that way. And a harbinger can sometimes be too much. Well, too
Oh,
much.
oh no. Think you misunderstand. Uh, the people of the air,
Hmm.
we were always told you were called avians for some reason. I don't know. Anyway, no, the ones I met were in the tower.
As
The
part of
entry.
the harbingers? As
Oh
part of
yeah,
your people?
yeah. Uh, we have all sorts up there.
There are those who are. That is not surprising. Uh, No,
Well,
I am lying. I am surprised that any of our people would have chosen that path. It is not surprising there are Taksat who are not Taksat. We, the younger, some of the younger people will, they have always, and he says always like it should have a capital A. There have always been those young ones who tire of our traditions and seek something else. So they wander the world. Some come back, many come back after a time. Some do not. We do not always know what happens to them. It is surprising that they would have chosen your path, but only at first, not once I think about it. Were you friends with them? Interesting question.
friends is a strong word.
Hmm. Were they friends with others, or are you bad? Were they bad at friends, or were you?
Harbingers are bad at friends.
Hmm. He nods. He's definitely not arguing. He's just definitely like following that way. It's like that sounds the kind of thing like I've never really thought about in that way, but you're probably definitely not arguing with you about it. That seems right. When you were explaining your people and their involvement with the corruptor, you mentioned this council. Are any of I suppose they could be called avians. Are any of the avians on this council? It's like he needed a word for people who are like me but not not our people anymore, and he's settling on avians as, yeah, I might as well call them that because otherwise I'm just gonna call them, cheesy popcorn. It doesn't matter. Um, so he's just taking your word for it. You're using your word for it. Were they on the council?
Only one. Uh, and I'm gonna have to come up with a name really quick that'll fit the Harbinger naming convention here. But
What is the Harbinger naming convention?
ah,
Throw that at
so
me.
so the naming convention, as we can see with Rowan Greenhanded,
Uh-huh.
is a first name,
Uh-huh.
which would be the name given to you as an apprentice.
Okay.
Uh, and then there is the name you take for yourself that represents your magic. So
Oh. I have to think of
Green-handed being Rowan's connection to the earth.
I think it's well, and perhaps I didn't necessarily understand that, but I think I'm still sticking with Eki of Bornir, and I'm just gonna figure out what that means, whether he cast some part of his name aside,
Oh, he is
or
probably Ekia Bornir. So Eki is probably his apprentice name.
for sure.
Perhaps he was some nobility before joining the or some high family before joining the Harbingers. So
Could have been.
he would be, yeah, it could be, part of that he's still holding on to, perhaps.
Hmm. Okay.
I could also suggest that it's another name that he adopted not because of his magic style, but maybe there's some significance to it, like it's in another language that he took on after signing up with the Overlord.
Oh yeah. Yeah, like he cast part of the name aside. That'd be interesting. I have to think about that. But
Like like you played on this arrogance, like maybe he thinks that he's now too good for how the Harbingers do things, but he's going to mock that tradition by following their example and just picking yet another name.
I wonder, yeah, I have to wonder if maybe the council, like the higher council and stuff, have cast aside that pattern. I'm not married to that idea. Just like the idea of, like, there's a new fashion, and the new fashion is something more mysterious, more, let's not advertise what our magical style is. You know, who would do that?
Or he thinks that he's good at all magic and therefore picking his magic focus doesn't make any sense anymore.
That is 100% Eki. Uh,
That seems accurate.
yeah, that's pretty good. I like that. Huh. Uh, yeah, I'd have to see. I'm looking at something here real quick. A
So
deer.
while you're doing that, Mike, did you have a suggestion for the alien's name, or you're still working on it?
The only part that I wanted, or I had an idea for, was for the title, which would have been the Six Gale.
A deer. IDIR. A deer.
The Deer of the Six Gale.
Yep. A deer is still. It probably wasn't his original name. And if you tell him the name, our erstwhile shaman would show no real recognition of it. So either the name was a new name he was taking. It's still definitely a name of the style of the people of the air, but it's either wasn't a well-known name, or he changed it or took a different similar name, something like that when he. But yeah, male. Of this, is it 6 scale or of the 6 scale, or
The Six Gale.
a deer of the 6 scale? Gotta get that down. I'm just gonna type it right in here.
I'm keeping notes.
Thank you.
James had asked earlier as well.
Yeah, thank you very much. It worries me when there are many other things that also worry me about this, that there is one of our people who would have aligned themselves with the corruptor. It 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 speaks either to a corruption where there had been none, or a conscious embracing of something that otherwise would have had no power or little power over us, other than the simple power of destruction, which all things have at some point over another thing. What do you predict with your star charts? What are you predicting with your star charts, or determining? What do you see?
I-
What do you think you see? I don't know that he would attribute like unmutable truth to it, but he's curious.
Um, well, they're still foggy right now, but I do see, and if I'm gonna go full force on this one,
Go for it.
Um,
Do the move, man.
Yep. But I do see a servant of the corruptor speaking to a crowd of people in Chains Crossing.
Speaking to a
Can't say-
crowd
Yes.
to
Can't say how they're receiving it or really what they're talking about, but I know I can see that much.
how are they speaking? Angry? Imploring?
Very imploringly.
Hmm. If the corruptor would send some warning to a people that they would bring low, then that means that the fear is part of the point, is part of the goal. If one were to attack a place, one does not tell the place one is going to attack unless one is a fool. Somewhere Viren's nods and grunts and doesn't know why. No,
Perhaps.
so if you send a message to a people, it is their reaction to the message that you want, if you can predict it. Can you see them? Can you see their face? Do you know who they are, or just that they serve them?
Just that they serve him.
Hmm.
It is not somebody I have ever met before.
The Harbingers are very powerful. Your abilities are rarely to be matched. That is our understanding, and in my life, my experience with those like you. But you will forgive me for saying that as gifts go, this one's knowing that you must look for someone who is speaking to a crowd in a great city seems a hard target to hit, or perhaps difficult to pick a target from so many. Don't envy you that hunt.
Well, I'll recognize where they're talking when I see it, but I couldn't tell you when it's happening.
So you don't know what they look like, but you know where the place, what the place looks like. Like he's at, like, you know, the square, like where they're at, like where they're, like you have some idea of like where they are, like the space.
Yes.
Ah, that's really cool.
Yep.
That's really, really cool.
Because when I get to do this, I can say what happened, but not why or how. Um, I can say where it took place or when, but not both. And I can only see one person.
You see them. Very cool. All
And
right.
I'm just setting up for more of your organization here.
Yep.
I'm,
Yep.
I'm sure as soon as like they show up, you'll be like, and that's the guy you saw in
And
your,
that's
or
the guy you
that's
saw.
that's the person you saw in your vision.
I will buy that. Okay. Okay. There's a So in the city of Chains Crossing, I think we sort of established as a bit of a trade hub. A lot of commerce and just travel and generally exchange, sort of a neutral territory, kind of a Morocco. Is that like a Casablanca kind of thing?
Seems accurate.
Sort of up and away from other things. Hmm. Okay. So if this were the TV show, we're hearing Rowan kind of describe this thing. This you know vaguely what he's saying. Like I can see the place. I can see somebody talking to a large group of people. I can't see really, and the camera is showing us this. We're seeing a square. There's a fountain. There's no water in it. There was at one point, but it's dry now. Um, the statue that might have been in the middle of it has been like sort of broken off at the ankles, kind of thing. Where the water would have come out, the spout where the water would have come out, several spouts, are just kind of jutting out of like out of the side of the central sort of cube of like mount where the statue would be in various places. So whatever was there surrounding these pipes, um, has been broken away or smashed or something like that. So you've just got these kind of dented, bent pipes kind of sticking out, as it says, dry. And you see that, and the person talking to people. He's not shouting. He's not exhorting people to action. He's speaking almost conversationally to people as they go by. Sort of the person on the subway who never is quiet, but they're not shouting. It's like I said, it's very conversational. So as they speak, uh, they'll say specific things to specific people. There's an ongoing stream of dialogue, but then they'll pause and say something to a person and then continue on, either as a related statement to whatever they were saying, or in some cases it seems that they just completely stop talking, turn and look at somebody and say a thing, and then turn back and continue on as though nothing had happened. We don't get in to see necessarily, but we do see very briefly reactions, startlement in some cases, not that somebody was speaking to them, but at the words that were said. concern, anger, but like more of a resentment. And we see them talking and just continuing, and they just go. No one stops to listen. No one's watching. It's not that kind of soapbox preacher kind of thing. They're standing on the lip of the fountain, and they just occasionally talk to people while they continue to just exhort the general crowd. And at some point, some previously mentioned or previously like determined point, they stop and they kind of draw their hood up and they step down from the edge of the fountain and they walk back. And it's an open square. It's definitely seen better days. It was definitely a much nicer place. Whatever part of the city this is in, it's not in the nicer part of the city. But the buildings were once grander than they were. The windows were broad, and the windows that are boarded up now are now were once quite broad and probably quite impressive. The square itself, you can easily imagine a time when it would have been much more impressive. And the figure is now moving down through the crowd and not speaking and completely unremarkable to everyone else. And we follow them through into, down a couple of, really kind of across the square and down a short street. And then the street itself goes straight to the front of, there's sort of a T intersection, and at the T intersection straight ahead is the doors to like an old building, possibly an old church or something like, possibly, it's hard to say even really. The great double doors that pull open open up into a courtyard, and they pull one partly open, slip inside into the courtyard. From there, pull it shut and bar it and into the building. And it's been made up, it's been inhabited. It's livable. But again, in this front open sort of entry space, it's quite a large room. There's no furniture or anything like that. There are there's bits and pieces of stone that are in some cases quite large, and we realize that there are pieces of the fountain that had once been there. Large fish body, some cases shattered pieces of the fish head. They don't look as though they were like broken and brought here. They've been like reacquired or assembled or collected almost. Most central of which is the person that would have stood on the top of the fountain. A woman in a dress, arms outstretched. You imagine it's laid out on the floor and they're in those positions, but it's in pieces. So it's all broken. The body is laid out. And we see them, kind of come up on this thing and regard the body laid out with its arms outstretched on the floor, and without really saying anything. But we do see the eyes in the hood focus on, and we see the camera focus on the carved eyes that seem to look right back into them. And they reach down and sort of touch the fingers of the hand and step and look back towards the entrance of the building, back. The sense is that they're looking back at the crowds that they've been talking with, and they murmur and within the hood, soon. And that's what we'll stop with that. I don't know, that's not necessarily exactly as far as I wanted to get with giving you the next thing that they're looking for, but that is the start of the Tenebrios' second goal, is require this agent of theirs within the city, and then whatever other nastiness they've got going on with Chains Crossing. But this agent is doing things within the city. Muhaha.
No, that sounds really good.
Yeah. Okay. So we have a person to look for. We have a person. Thank you, Rowan. We have a person to look for. We have city. We can go from there. And we might start off by doing the downtime for David Marge's character next time, and then proceed. Do that stuff. Cool.
Yeah.
I'm cognizant of the fact that we're wrapping up. We got started a little. We got started late. That's on me. I want to wrap up a little bit early because I know James mentioned that homework waits for no game. And
No, it doesn't.
no, it
It's
doesn't.
very sad.
It's very sad. So I will leave you to it. Do we have questions to answer though? Where are those questions? They're in the moves. They're in the moves, aren't they? I don't expect we're going to have a lot of answers, but let's go look anyway. End of session. When you reach the end of a session, the fellowship answers these 3 questions. Did we save or protect a community in need? Probably no. Did we strike a
No.
blow against the overlord and their minions? That's downtime. Did we learn more about the world and its peoples? Yes.
I think we did.
I think we absolutely did. I think that's absolutely true. So, we have advancements. I feel like we leveled a couple people last time.
Yeah, I
Right.
think I leveled. I just haven't done anything with that.
Oh yeah, and the Overlord leveled too. And so who leveled last time? I didn't do anything.
From last time, the Overlord, Anne, Wynn, and Rowan all leveled up, leaving Virens and Carabas.
Virens and Carabas. And is it a twofer if we say yes once?
Yeah, the Overlord gets one choice, and then the players get one choice.
Right. Do we do that? I don't know what else we would do.
I don't know, since they didn't really do anything. I mean,
Yeah, Carabas is weird, right? But
yeah.
yeah.
I would still feel okay leveling people up, not because they did something, but
This session
because
just because it's I'm fine with it too.
Yeah.
Choose one set to heal. We don't need to do anything else but level, so it makes no sense to do anything but that. So I would say Virens and Carabas, and we all get up to whatever that would be next level 3.
Yep.
And I should actually do that with my Overlord, but I didn't expect we would need her leveled up this session, so I did not worry about it.
I also need to do that.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
So for Chains Crossing, I just want to mention I got kind of an Amarang vibe from it, and I left a video in the Discord general channel that's not only the background music for that zone in Final Fantasy XIV, but kind of a flyover of the region. If that looks right,
let me
or looks inspirational, let me know.
Amarang. God, you're gonna get me playing this damn game, man. This has got a lot of cool stuff in it.
Yeah.
I don't think you have enough free time in your life to do it. but,
Probably not.
like if you ever develop some free time, I would encourage it.
I have in the past been I mean, it's inaccurate to say, but I've met a lot of people. I know a lot of people online that I've met through
This was
MMOs
not
and
the
stuff.
city I thought it was going to be when you brought that up. But then again, I don't know the cities in Final Fantasy XIV that well.
What in general did you think it was going to be?
What was so the expansion before Shadowbringers?
Stormblood, yeah. So there's two. There's one major city that got introduced in there, which is Kugane, which is basically like fantasy, Japanese capital.
Yeah, not that one. It is the other one. That was just the vibe I got from it just by seeing the picture.
Oh, are you thinking of Rauger's Reach, the Resistance Zone, or something else?
No. See, now I'm gonna have to go look this up.
All right. I'm gonna stop recording. We can still look it up.